Welcome back. In this video, we're going to pick up where we left off in the last video with a couple things that we didn't get to go through, that I didn't get to demonstrate to you. One of which is running a Llamafile server with understanding the endpoints, kind of like outlined here with the V1 tokenized, V1 embedding, chat completions, models. And you'll see how using just the V1 and certain tools will know how to find these other endpoints. They're OpenAI compatible. It's what they are. It's what they do. And we didn't get to demonstrating a Whisperfile. So we're going to do those couple things at least in this video to kind of wrap up what we were trying to do in the last video, but it was just going on too long. So getting into it, what we're going to demonstrate here is running the Llamafile as a server. And so let's just go into our file system and figure out where we have these things, probably down in bin. So here you see I have Llama 3.2, 1B, and 3B. I also have one of the Whisper files. You know, I have the, I don't know if it's the large version 2 or 3 or both. That'd probably be up here in the archived models. Yeah, so we had downloaded in the last video some DeepSeek models. I have some tiny Llama models. These are the other Whisper files. Whisper AI Llama files. I call them Whisper files. And so I just took one of the small English Whisper Llama files and threw it in the bin. So just so you understand what's happening in this directory right here, the user's home directory /bin. It's a directory that is already inserted into the system path. So any binaries or executables that go into one of these bin directories, I have set up so that they're executable system-wide without aliases and all that. You don't have to type /. But what I did do is, if we go in and check out our bash aliases, you'll see that what I did do for aliases, if we go down here a little ways, so right here, you'll see just the long name of the Llama file. In this case, I did the Llama 3.2.3b, and running it as server with no browser, I just aliased that to Llama server just so it's, you know, quicker, faster to type. Did the same thing, running the same model, the same Llama file without the server and no browser flags. That just runs it as the Llama file. And I also aliased that little Whisper Llama file, the little Whisper file, that one of the ones that I made executable and put into the bin directory. And I just aliased that to Whisper. Just so when you see these things later, this is why I'm typing such short commands instead of these long ones. Nothing super complicated here. And so to demonstrate using the Llama file as a server, what we have to do, we can just type in the Llama server, and that's going to spin up a server. And by default, because I didn't specify a port, which I could do, you know, if we just run the same thing and I run, I don't know, 8090, anything, and it'll spin that up, and you see right here, it spun it up on port 8090. So pretty simple stuff. And if you run a server like this, if you close this terminal window, obviously most of you are probably in the know. If you close this terminal, it shuts down the Llamafile server, unless you, let's say we Control-C and that server. If you do the space and then, sorry, not the $, and the ampersand, it'll spin the server up and leave it running in the background, and then you can use this terminal for whatever you want. Then you have to do the PS and the kill if you want to kill it. There's various ways to kill it once it's running in the background. You can also reattach it to your terminal, but I don't want to get into that stuff. It's not what we're here for. So I'll just leave it. I'll spin that up on 8090 and throw it in the background for now. And now that we have that running on 8090, we have to use some kind of tool, right, to demonstrate using this Llamafile server locally through some tool that has OpenAI API integrations. And the obvious tool in my mind is the Fabric tool. Let's just double check and make sure this is in our system's path, because I've been throwing things all around everywhere. Actually, on this system, we probably have nothing, which Fabric-AI. Okay, I installed the Fabric AI command line tool through Linux Brew, or, you know, Homebrew Brew install. So I must have an alias on this system. Yeah, I do, right here, F or Fabric. They're alias to the Fabric-AI. We can use the Fabric tool, and this, if you want to know more about the Fabric tool, once you see how it's used here, there's, you know, I started a whole series on basically acting as video documentation for anyone that wants it or needs it. The people I know personally, and just you know, GitHub people. It's a really cool, useful tool. Like with anything these days, there's a certain lack of documentation, and even when there is documentation, docs are hard to read. They're hard to, it's like a whole other language to me. You know, I've been looking at it for years, and I just still, it's just so tiresome. It's exhausting to read through docs, and video documentation is awesome. You know, anyone can learn from it. So at any rate, not giving you a crash course on on Fabric. I'm just going to show you. We have Llama hooked up to this tool and OpenAI. And if we take a look at the OpenAI, hopefully this is not going to bring up my keys. Okay, good. Yeah, I have no key. So when you run a Llamafile server, if you specify in the flags back here where we ran this thing, and if you go up here where, you know, I just typed Llama server there, where's the next one we ran? So port 8090, if you also put in here some flags that specify a key, an API key, then when you try to hook up to it over here, you would have to put in, or whoever, you know, if you set this server up for like an entire office or something like that, then you can specify keys. And that's getting a little deeper into the whole Llamafile thing, and we'll explore that when its time comes. But right now, we're just going to do a demo. So to hook this up through what you would normally hook up OpenAI, the monster models, we can just hijack this pathway, right? In here, obviously, I've already done it because my long OpenAI keys are not in here. What would normally be located right here is HTTPS, I think it's api.openai.com/v1. It's something like that. You know, this is the normal endpoint that you put in, and then whatever you're using, like Fabric here, it would find v1/models to find available models, and /chat completions, /completions, /embeddings, /tokenizer, all that stuff, just like we have with the Llama server itself. All these same endpoints and more are available through OpenAI. And so when some server of any sort that's basically an LLM server, when they say that they're OpenAI compatible, it means they're following the same format for all of their endpoints. These are pretty much the same endpoints, some of, not all of, that OpenAI provides. And that's why we're able to hijack that pathway, right? And hook up our local Llamafile through the OpenAI plugin here. So this is what it would normally be, and this is what we want it to be, except now I was screwing around. Now that's 8090. This is actually going to have to get changed, and we have to do HTTP, not HTTPS. This has to be HTTP for what we're doing here. And then this would just say localhost 8090 v1, and this should hook us up. Now it says configured. That doesn't mean that it's working right. We will know by going into plugin number option 14 and seeing if we have, and we do, through the OpenAI plugin, through that pathway or through that channel, it pulls up from our v1 models endpoint that the Llamafile server provides. It's telling this Fabric tool that this is the model available, which is consequently the name of the entire thing that we're using. The server, what I alias to for Llama server, what I alias to for just Llama 3B, it provides that to the Fabric tool, and that's how we know definitively that we're actually hooked up to this thing. And so we'll put in, what was that, number 1, right? Yeah, we'll put in number 1 to make that our model that we're using with this Fabric tool. 16,000 context linked. We'll leave that right alone. And then we're about to talk to our Llamafile, and to make sure we have the server up and running here on 8090, and if we see anything happening over here, kind of proof in the pudding that we're successfully communicating with it. So when I type in here Fabric, I don't know, it's asking a really interesting question, like, why is the sky blue? I asked this thing a million times. If this thing ever becomes sentient, it's going to be because I've really annoyed it asking this question to it 1,000 times. So we can just do -s. I don't need to, if you know or learn more about Fabric, you would put normally a P flag stacked onto this with patterns, the whole system prompt, Fabric pattern library. It's an amazing, amazing thing. I just can't say enough about that thing. But we don't need to do that for what we're doing here. So when I press enter, we want to keep an eye down here and see if what's happening and make sure that we're connected with this thing. And you see right away that there's some stuff happening. Once this thing gets to the end of its response, we should see a couple more lines kick out over here, just going through fetching the retrieval, the response, sending it back, all that sort of good stuff that happens that, you know, and this is a white wall of vomit. It doesn't really matter to us right now what this output is over here on the server terminal window. And then we just see it end. So we know that we're actually connected. This isn't connected to Llama or anything like that. We're connected directly to this Llamafile server with a local AI tool, in this case called Fabric. And you see the speed there. I'm telling you, it isn't bad. That's opening up not too wide. You know, we opened up the context window. We blew it out to 16,000. That's not super big, and this thing has a really good response. And remember, this is running on CPU. In fact, I think it might be operating on 4 threads. And that doesn't even matter right now, really. Why is this guy build? Maybe we ought to ask it why it's blue, right? You know, this is pretty good response. Anyone would have to admit it. Running on CPU on this Llamafile server, using the Fabric tool to talk directly back and forth with our LLMs. We can move on from there. We'll leave this Llamafile server up and running for a little while. Let's visit the Whisperfile, clear our terminal, and again, just so you guys remember, I downloaded some of these things right here, and if you want to find all these things, remember you got to go to huggingface.co/Mozilla. I'm going to bring you to this page, expand so you see all 60 whatever number, 60 some odd, and you can get all these are pre-built Llama files for you. Now I remember when I first got into this Llama file scene, there was like 6 or maybe 10 or 12. Now there's a couple hundred, 60 some odd of which are like the ones that are most often downloaded, and they certainly didn't have pre-built Whisper files for us. We had to build those out of the repo, which I'll show you how to do. If you click on that, it brings you the model card. You can read up, and you should always read up on these things. Educate yourself on how these things work, what they're trained on, so what you're supposed to use them for. But you go over to files and versions, and you'll see all these things here: the V2, V3, the medium, small and tiny, the English or multi-language, multilingual versions. The one that we're going to be demonstrating is the Whisper Small English model. It's not even half a gig. That's tiny in the world of LLMs and models and neural networks. That's friggin' tiny. And you're going to see how cool this thing is. We're not even using one of the big ones at 3.5 gigs, not even. We're talking half a gig. The best language models that start, of the really small ones that start at, I guess, 1, but really 3 billion parameters. You're at 3-4 gigs minimum just to get decent response. And you're going to see what you get from a Whisper model at half a gig. Granted, it's not generating intelligent text and stuff like that. It doesn't have nearly as tough a job, I guess you'd say. Let's go figure out where I stuck this thing. In bin. Yes, it is. And I already made it executable. And again, you would do that. Let's just take a look at things real quick. So if I were to do chmod -x, so if I ran this command and then we take a look and I just took away executable permissions, so you can't run this now. When you get one of these things pulled down to your system on Linux and Mac, the Windows is a whole other story, but Linux, Mac, or pretty much anything else, you just run chmod +x, then the model, run that, and then you'll see that you get execute permissions. You'll see it, depending on what you have run. I have EZA running as my file listing, as my LS tool, really. And that's just, just wanted to go over that one more time real quick, and then I'll leave that alone. So we have the Whisper file in there, and so what are we going to do with this thing, right? So let's take a look. Where do I have something to play around with? Okay, output wave file. What is this thing? I don't even care what it is. We're going to delete it. We're going to delete it. We're going to drop into the terminal so I don't confuse anyone with Ranger. And we're going to run on Ubuntu, probably many Linux versions. I don't know if this is a Debian thing, thus inherited by Ubuntu, and then Mint, and then probably at least 100 other distros, or if this is an Ubuntu thing that I'm not real sure, but there's a command called arecord. If I were to look at my history real quick, it's going to be this guy right here, bash aliases. That's all I'm doing right here, taking this long command, and I do need to point out real quick why I'm running all of these extra flags with the arecord command. The arecord command, you could use FFmpeg if you wanted. Totally cool, works really well. Arecord is just something native to Ubuntu. In the terminal, it's just a command line tool where you just run a command and you record from your system microphone. That's all it is. And then all these other flags and options here, why that is because it's probably going to be easier to find it this way. Let me just spin up another terminal. If I were to put in, we have Whisper alias to run a Whisper file, so I can just type Whisper-H, pull this up, and you'll see right here, where is it? Right here, path of audio file to transcribe. So after we record something with arecord and the rest of this command, it's the preferred audio, meaning it won't have to do any translating. It won't have to spend any system compute modifying or translating, because you can send it MP3 and all this other stuff, and then it needs to translate that to 16 kilohertz 16-bit signed linear wave files. So if you just pass it 16 kilohertz 16-bit signed linear wave files, it's going to transcribe everything faster because it doesn't need to first do any conversions, right? Makes sense. It's simple. That's all we're doing in this arecord command. We're just recording in 16 kilohertz, 16,000 here, 16-bit linear, 16-bit signed linear. Just looking up the documentation on arecord on that command, figure out real quick all the flags and options, and then putting out to a wave output output and then the actual name of the file that we're going to output our recording to. That's what this whole thing does, just so that this Whisperfile tool doesn't have to do any conversions. We're passing it exactly what it wants to start transcribing right away. Taking the WAV file, which is just a recording of whatever I'm going to talk about, and transcribe that to text. So that's what we're doing with this whole thing. So the A record, and I'm going to save and quit out of that. I guess I didn't really need to shut down my terminal. I could have just source bash, but whatever. A really old habit there. As long as we have in settings, I just got to make sure that we have the microphone set, because I'm running the microphone for this video recording, and I'm going to try and use the same microphone to record dual purpose this microphone. We'll see if that works or not. So when I run this, it should start recording, and I should have to Control C to stop the recording. It says that it's recording me right now, and I should stop talking about that. So hey, how you doing, LLM? I have a question for you. If you could answer it for me, please. Why is the sky blue? Right? I had to think deeply about that one. Like I haven't asked that thing 1,000 times. So let's take a look. We should have a new output WAV file because I deleted the other one. And you know what? The moment of truth. What do we have to do to send this thing to Whisper? Let's take a look at the help file right here. We do a Whisperfile. We don't have to put a model to it because this Whisperfile is the command line tool that you build from the repo. We're running a Whisperfile.llama file. It's got the model plugged in. It's got the model wrapped into it already. So we don't ever have to put a -m and then a model when we're running an actual .llama file, Whisper file. We do have to put this part in, which would be -f and then the output wave. Let's take a look at some of these other things. So this is something I found, the -mp, where I'd said in the previous video that I don't use the regular Llama 3.2. I don't use that as a command line tool because of all the verbose output. Pay attention to when I don't and then do use the -mp flag. If I find that with the Llama file, the regular LLM Llama file, if I find a -mp flag, I can use that. I'm going to start using that as a command line tool all the time. Printing colors, this one's interesting because if it's uncertain about its transcription of your WAV file or whatever type of file you send it, anything it's confident about, it's going to have in green text, and if it's uncertain to any whatever degree, it's going to have it in red text. My WAV file that we're sending, it's pretty short and probably very clear, so it would all be in green. If you're really throwing some stuff at it and you need to throw a bunch of threads at it, it's nothing we have to worry about now. So there's really not a lot to pass to this thing. We wanted to transcribe the entire thing, so we're not going to specify any durations or anything like that. We're just going to use the -f, and then we'll add to that the -mp. So we can just put in Whisper -f. We're in this directory that has our output wave file. So we'll do output wave, and let's see what happens. It's spinning up. Right in this thing right here is where it transcribes the little wave file, the little recording that we just did a few moments ago. So it says that it's recording me right now, and I should stop talking. Right? Hey, you big dummy. So I have a question for you. If you could answer it for me, please. Why is the sky blue? This is what it would send. Now, the problem is when you go to send all this off to an LLM to give you a response, it's going to be all kinds of confused because of all this other stuff before and after the actual transcription. And I'll have you see here what's really cool is the transcription happens with timestamps. That you can already connect the dots, I'm sure. That's super useful. That'll come up on down the road. But we have to worry about, we got problems with this output before and after the actual transcription. It's crystal clear here what we need to do. That's explicitly why they offer this flag, -mp. So let's do the same thing. At the end of it, let's see if it matters where we throw the flags. And was it, oh, because it's one dash. You big dummy. So we throw the -mp on it, and you see all of this and all of this have been cut out. And we get just this as evidence by running the command, spits out just that. Now we have something that we can throw to a regular LLM. And in fact, right now, we can throw this right to our Llamafile server that is still up and running here and hooked up to our Fabric tool. Let's kill that guy. So let's run that same command and let's pipe it to Fabric, and we'll throw it the streaming flag, and we'll actually throw a pattern in this time. Raw query. You know what? With the Fabric tool, because the whole purpose of it is to seamlessly integrate a pattern library, i.e. a system prompt library, but I'm not trying to distract. You don't technically have to run anything to it. So we're just going to pipe this right to Fabric, which means we're piping it to our Llamafile server that has Llama 323b hooked up to it. This is the recording of me. Whisper is going to transcribe it and dump its output via standard in, meaning we can pipe it, to the Fabric tool, which is hooked up to our local Llamafile server, which is hosting Llama 323B, and we're hijacking the OpenAI pathway, right? Let's see what happens. Boom. Sky appears blue to us during the day, yada, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think you can see where we're going with this, right? On this demo system, I haven't pulled down any real text-to-speech models or neural networks or any of that, but what we do have on Ubuntu, I think, I'll do sudo apt install, is it Festival? Already installed. So I don't know if Festival came with Ubuntu or if I had just already installed it. I don't remember using it all. But anyhow, so we're going to run that same command, and then we're going to pipe it to Festival, and I think we have to do the TTS flag. And this is going to be a robot voice with no voice, tone, inflection, emotion, none of that.
The sky appears blue to us during the day due to a phenomenon called rayless scattering. Here's a simplified explanation. Bomb asterisk asterisk sunlight asterisk asterisk. Sunlight is
It's saying the asterisk asterisk.
Electromagnetic radiation. These colors are not actually colors.
You can see right away where I'm going with this, right? I can set up just via a pipeline here in the terminal of Ubuntu or any Linux and Mac, whatever, where I can set to a key binding. We have it as AREC is the alias that we have, right? I set that up so that there's a key binding. I type a certain key or a certain combination of keys or a key chord. Then when I stop the recording, it sends it off to Whisper, which sends it off to Fabric, which sends it off. In this case, I think all I have on this system is Festival. And then you got a real-time voice assistant right on your system without really doing a lot. This is all possible. Yes, Fabric has a big part to play, but this whole thing is possible locally, and then, hey, that happens in like 5 or 6 seconds to where I start using Festival, speaking back to me. This whole thing is possible because of Llama files. Yes, I can integrate Llama just the way I'm doing this. Llama files are the way. They're just the way to make this so stupid easy. Any one of you guys watching this with any kind of foresight, you can intuit where I'm going with this. And yes, we're going to do it. After I get through a couple build videos on building out tools from the repo, you can tell exactly what we're going to be getting into after that. Exactly what you think, that's exactly what we're going to be doing. And we're going to be doing it all with Llama files. At any rate, I just wanted to throw those couple things, and like I always do, take forever to do it. But we'll see you over in the next one.